we always talk about the things you see. And like I've seen a lot of stuff on the ambulance, and I'm really proud to say that I've saved people's lives in that way. But I always get asked, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? And a lot of people don't realize it's not just the things that you see, it's the things that you hear, it's the things that you feel, it's things that you smell.
Hello, this is Greg Coon with Cardiac Crusade, and we're already up to episode number 3 of Beating Cardiac Odds. Our goal is to beat cardiac odds and see what we can do to increase the survival rates of those having a sudden cardiac arrest. So, first person we've got is Nick Parianos. Did I pronounce that right?
You did.
Okay, good. You do multiple things. You are an EMT and you're also a teacher. Did I get that, at least those two right?
Correct. Yep.
Beautiful. Before we get into all of that, tell me about you, your family, etc. Kind of who you are as a person.
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me. I think that this is a great opportunity to really impact some lives, and I'm happy to be a part of it. So like you had said, my name is Nick Parianos. I'm a full-time wellness teacher at Masconomet Regional High School. We're a tri-town regional. So we serve Middleton, Topsfield, and Boxford, Massachusetts. We have about 950 students in the high school. I teach grades 9 through 12. I'm dual licensed in health and physical education. I teach first responder classes to underclassmen and an EMT course to the upperclassmen. When I got hired for this position, they also asked me if I wanted to go get my EMT basic license, work on an ambulance, and work towards getting my EMT instructor license. So I'm actually just about to finish that instructor package, and be able to certify high school students as EMTs. We're the only public school in the state that is an accredited training institution that can certify students for free. So it's a really unique opportunity. And then I had heard about this through my ambulance company, Beauport, and I think that it's a fantastic outreach community service project. So I've taken it on personally, and I've also passed this along to my students as well. A little bit about myself. Right out of high school, I served 4 years in the United States Marine Corps. I was an armor. I deployed overseas in 2014 with the 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines. I got out in 2017, used the GI Bill. Since then, I've gotten 2 master's degrees. The first is a Master of Science in Community Health Education. The second is a Master of Education in Curriculum and Instruction. I've also got an Associate's in Fire Science. So I'm trying to like take all of these different areas of education and experience and tie them into my classroom so that my students just have the best educational opportunity that they can.
So that's all. I've got a couple of guys I play hockey with that were in the Marines, and you guys are just rock stars. Thanks for all that you do. And then post service is these are things that I believe to my core will save lives over time. Not just this immediate immediately, but over time. I mean, it's cumulative. That the work we're doing now will save lives every single year, and it'll grow every single year. Okay, so just kind of a quick backdrop. Background. So we're starting a big campaign in Massachusetts, and the campaign is to map 1,500 AEDs. It's our goal. It's what we want to do. And we had our last campaign was in Buffalo or Western New York area. We had a goal of 1,000. And we got to 1,200, so we surpassed. I just pulled it out of a hat. How many do we want to? Someone asked me. I think a reporter asked me how many do we want to map when we launched it in Buffalo area, and I said 1,000. It seemed crazy. I was like, "There's no way we're gonna do it though." But it was a round number. Ended up 1,200, so it's great. So now we're gonna do 1,500, and it's just hopefully just gonna grow from there. So, in order to become a verifier, our volunteers have to go through a quick 20-minute online training. And just so you understand how to do it and you get access to be able to do that and verify it. But once verified, those mapped AEDs become available to your local municipality's 911 system. So they have different ways of connecting into our database using with our database partner. But as soon as an AED is mapped, it is available to local 911 systems so they know where they are. So I have, after you took this project, Nick, within an hour, the floodgate started coming in. I started getting all of these emails, signing up notices, and I'm kind of figuring out, depending on the email address, where they're coming from. A lot of them are from you and your efforts. Tell me what you did with your students and what you told them and what your instructions to your students were, please.
Sure. I think health teachers are really going to be a huge leverage point for this program because we have so many students, especially here in my district. My students are unbelievably intelligent, high achieving, and passionate. When they take these elective courses, they genuinely want to be here. And I ask the kids at the beginning of the semester, why are you in this first responder or EMT class? And almost universally, the answer is, I want to learn how to help people during an emergency. And so I had presented this. So for my EMT class, which is seniors, it is a class assignment is you had to register, and then their goal is to go out in town and find at least five and geotag those. As of next week, and I've already started passing this information along to my underclassmen, we're going to do a community service project. So this part will be volunteer to them, and they will have the opportunity to register, just like you had just spoke about, and then on their own go out and tag. So our school has set a goal of 300 AEDs. So far, I don't have exact numbers on how many students are interested, but just students expressing interest, it's been about 40 to 50 students. If every student just does a few, like those numbers are going to go through the roof. I had told you just jokingly, I think 1,500 is low, but that's okay.
I
We can
love
set
that.
that and then go above and beyond because I personally have, again, with that first master's degree in community health education, a lot of resources on how to go about this. So a class assignment that my students were doing is just as a group of 24 students brainstorming what places generally have AEDs, gyms, some big chain restaurants, grocery stores, churches, every government building, schools, colleges, karate centers, all of these places have them. Then we even went out and we were emailing the local towns saying, hey, do you have lists of the local AEDs that are at public parks? So we just got a list of 20 different AEDs in a local town that they have at every public park, and we're going to go tag all of those. The information is there. It's just a matter of going out and doing it. But if you're not kind of ready to go that far, just as you're out in the store, oh, you're at a Target just to pick up some supplies, there's an AED, boom, tagged out at the grocery store, boom, tagged. It's that easy. And you might not think, oh, just tagging one AED makes a difference. All it takes is one. That is all it takes to save a life.
And the work that you do now, let's say you tag that at the local Target store, it might be 18 months later, but that 18 months later, there might be a situation where someone has a cardiac arrest in the let's say the parking lot, and someone goes down. And if you're in the parking lot, you're not thinking about, okay, there's an AED inside, and it's literally 50 feet away. But someone calls 911 and they say someone's down, not breathing, all the signs, and on the calling tree for the 911 operator, they say, okay, start CPR. It looks like we got cardiac arrest. You start CPR, have someone go get the closest AED. It is located on the wall in the customer service center in the Target 50 feet away. Someone else runs and goes and gets it. That takes 90 seconds, and it takes 7 minutes for the ambulance to get there because I understand Boston traffic is not easy to get through, even if you have lights and sirens going. But yes, and that's part of our whole thing is what I learned. And I like to think I'm relatively intelligent guy, but I didn't know the difference between a cardiac arrest and a heart attack before my wife Julie had her cardiac arrest in 2018. Now and how this whole thing started, I learned the whole thing. She survived. She has a great outcome. Part of the 10% club, but even within the 10% survival club, she's one that has no cognitive issues, and that's rare. And I wanted you to expand on that in a second. But I was sitting on my desk in my office, and I look at my phone, and it's like, now I understand it's essential to know where the AEDs are, the closest AEDs are. So I was like, hey, Google, hey, Siri, where's the closest Starbucks? boom, you've got everything you need within 2 seconds. Why can't you do that with an AED? It just seemed crazy to me. So that's what started this whole thing. So our mission, our ultimate mission, is still what I just described, but in parallel, you've got to make the database robust with all the AED locations. You have to, they have to be in there. One of the things that after my wife Julie had her sudden cardiac arrest, we met with the medical director for our city. Okay, so we live in Plano, Texas, which is a suburb north of Dallas. We're good middle upper class, typical suburbia USA. Met with the medical director. The Plano 911 system is very incorporates the database, and so our database partner is PulsePoint. They're the obvious choice. They're the biggest, most robust, and most importantly, the most accurate AED database, because you have to verify that they're there with our volunteers, your students. I asked them how many AEDs out there are on the PulsePoint app for our city of Plano. And you don't know what you don't know. So he just pulled it out of his hat. He goes, I don't know, maybe 10%. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. So 90% of the AEDs that are out there, your 911 operators and your EMT and your paramedics, they don't know where they are. And he was like, yeah. So that's part of our mission of mapping it. And when you say, oh, we're going to get to 1,500 easy, oh my God, I love that about what you said. So expand. Tell me a little bit more about your paramedic experience and your dealing with cardiac arrest. When you're doing your job.
Sure. So I'm an EMT basic, not a paramedic, and I think that that's actually a good differentiation because a
And
lot of
please
people.
do. Yeah, I get it confused all the time. Please help me.
No, totally understand. And I've realized, because again, I'm rather new to this field. I do the EMT stuff on the side. Actually, just last night, I worked an overnight. I worked 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And then I was in school at Masco 7:35 a.m. to teach my classes. I do this full time. This is my full-time gig. And then I do the EMT stuff on the side. So
Gotcha.
it's really interesting because I've gone through all this training. But what you had said about identifying AEDs is really important because I am an EMT basic and I teach basic life support. There's basic life support and advanced life support. And the difference really just comes down to the basics are what do save lives. It's not because it's easier, it's not because it's less cognitively taxing or physically taxing. It's because it's what empirically, by the data, is what saves lives. We know that the two components to increasing out of hospital cardiac arrest are rapid defibrillation and high quality CPR. It is not intubation. It is not drug administration. It is not mechanical ventilation. It is CPR and AED. And that's why they call it the basics, because the basics are what save lives. I think it's really interesting and it's humbling to say this. And I guess it's actually good in a way. I don't work on the ambulance enough. I've actually never worked a cardiac arrest in the pre-hospital setting. So it's interesting that I'm a CPR instructor. I teach the EMT course and I'm in front of my students telling these kids like, yeah, I've never actually done CPR on a person. And it's humbling because I have students who have done CPR on people. I train people out in town, in communities, and at organizations, and they have done CPR. But again, it just comes back to kind of my educational background and taking all of the data and how I didactically introduce that information to them to hopefully increase their confidence and increase their ability in performing those skills. God forbid they ever come across that. So that's kind of a little bit about my background. But you had mentioned heart attack versus cardiac arrest. And I think that that's a good differentiator as well, because heart attack is the leading cause of cardiac arrest. So a heart attack is usually caused by an obstruction in one of the coronary arteries, so the blood vessels that surround the heart. And then the heart gets deprived of oxygen and it throws off the electrical signal. Once that happens, the electrical signal goes crazy and the heart does not beat regularly. And that is where the person doesn't have enough blood supply to the heart. The heart can't pump properly. It can't get blood throughout the body, specifically to the brain. The person goes unresponsive. And that's when we hope that bystanders will jump in and start CPR and rapid defibrillation. You had hit the nail on the head with the response times. Here in Massachusetts, we are very well equipped, but that can still take up to 5 to 10 minutes for an ambulance to actually get on scene. Firefighters are usually the first on scene. Police officers are usually the first on scene, and they do have CPR and AED training, which is really good. But the statistic is for every minute that a person goes without CPR, their chance of survival decreases by 10%. So on average, a person has about a 50% chance of surviving. And that's not even looking at the other factors of what might have caused that cardiac arrest. That's with a perfect world scenario. And then, like you had mentioned, that 10% survival rate is decreased when we talk about who is still neurologically intact, who still has full brain functioning. So all of these factors go in, and it's really simple because we need lay people, we need bystanders to jump in. And as we continue with these types of programs and apps and educational resources, we hopefully will encourage more people to get confidence, to get training, and act to help to save lives.
So on that note, the national average is 10%, give or take a couple. Obviously, if you're rural, you've got 2%, 3%. And especially if you're if you're in a home and on a farm, it's just not going to happen. But it increases as you get closer to other people that can do CPR and that where there's an AED close by. So I'm just going to throw it out there and see if you know this statistic. So the national average is 10%. However, if like my wife, if you get a shock within 2 minutes, what is the average survival? What's the survival rate if you get a shock within 2 minutes? Do you know that number offhand, or if you don't, I'm curious of your guess.
I don't know, but I know usually electrical activity in the heart stops within 5 to 7 minutes. So a defibrillation within 2 minutes probably increases the chance of survival 75%.
Almost there, 80%. And if
Yeah,
you get a
that
shock
makes
within
total sense.
total, and if you get a shock within 1 minute, it's 90%. So
Yeah,
I mean that's Damar Hamlin.
I believe that completely.
Totally, yeah. So actually, my wife is not part of the 10% club. In reality, she's part of the 80% club. If you look at it from that perspective,
Yeah.
because she had CPR within 45 seconds. 911 was called immediately. She got CPR within 45 seconds, and she got the first of two shocks within 2 minutes. So, when the ambulance arrived and the paramedic arrived, I did an interview with the first paramedic on the scene, and he's like, we arrived at the scene where Julie was there, and he obviously they had work to do. She had a cardiac arrest. But he was like, there really wasn't that much for us to do, because it was already done. She was already coming to. Her heart was beating when they arrived because of the bystanders of what you're talking about. So, on that note, and it was to an adult who, again, I think I'm relatively intelligent, but I didn't know any of this before Julie's cardiac arrest. So when I have your students, and again, I've had a couple dozen already, more somewhere in there. I've got a lot, and they put their name and email address to sign up for the training. But once they finish the training, I need to get a little description of why is this important to you, and I've had 2 or 3 saying, "Yeah, I have this class, and my teacher told me to do this," and you could kind of see the high school vernacular, but it always ends up, I didn't realize the importance of what we're doing. And this is going to make a difference, and this will save someone's life. And so I'm getting that feedback from high school kids,
Yeah.
which is huge. Tell me how does that make you feel as a teacher when I'm telling you the responses from your kids?
Yeah, it sounds like cliched. It sounds corny. I am a health teacher by trade. I'm in my 6th year of teaching, and I've only been on the ambulance for 3 years. So I've taught twice as long as I've been on the ambulance. But I became a health teacher because I've always valued health and wellness. I've always enjoyed going to the gym. I've always enjoyed exercising and training, and I have several certifications in personal training. I'd say that that's really where my passion started. And I've always wanted to help people. So in college, somebody sat me down, an advisor, and said, you should consider teaching. And I was never like an academic person when I was in middle school or high school. Like I was like really middle of the road. I thought I was going to do 20 years in the military. That didn't work out. But I kind of look at it like, as a health teacher, I can help people be healthy and live longer. But as an EMT instructor, as a first aid instructor, I not only help people do that, but I teach people how to help other people. So you're magnifying the impact greatly. And that's why I really think that teachers are the hidden gem to this. Because not only have I been talking to these students, I talk to a lot of students that have graduated, and I have students across colleges all over the country, and kids have already taken this on at other schools throughout Massachusetts. But even I had one in Indiana who's doing this.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
it's an untapped gem. And I think that we could really leverage it. And like you had said, the buy-in is always the important part. You can't just tell somebody, go do this. You have to explain. And I have the good fortune of talking about this stuff in depth with my students for an entire year. I've had them for 3 weeks now. We kind of get the idea of cardiac arrest and AED defibrillation, all of that stuff. But truly creating that buy-in is what is going to push this program above and beyond.
So Julie has her cardiac arrest in 2018. I've taken CPR classes twice, CPR AED classes twice now. And in December of this past year, I play old man hockey. I had my game. I was post game, took a shower in the locker room. Someone runs in and says, someone's having a heart attack. And you got everyone in the team points to me and says, you're the guy, because they all know my story. And so I run out there with my socks on, and there's a guy laying on the ice, and and I asked a couple of the guys standing around, and I said, is he breathing? Because that's kind of like my main thing. Okay, how bad is he? If he's breathing, he's just knocked out, or he got hit and he's unconscious. But they said, I don't know. So I run out there in my socks on the ice, and I got there about 2.5 minutes after so I don't know what happened during that time before I saw him, but they did at least get his helmet off, and they did put AED pads on. There was an AED in the scorekeeper box 30 feet away, which is gone. And in this facility, there's 6 AEDs on the 2 sheets of ice in the lobby, and it is covered, which is amazing. So anyway, they had pad, and when I got there, it said analyzing heart rhythm. So everyone, I said, take hands away off the patient, and it said no shock and continue CPR. So
Yep.
ultimately what happened is, so you had the pad, he was playing hockey. He must be Italian, because the guy had a thick bunch of hair. I will curse his hair to the end of my days, because it wasn't making skin to skin contact. And so anyway, I started doing CPR, and it was surreal, because I was so focused on doing what I needed to do. So I did CPR for 3 minutes. A lady, Beth, comes in. We're friends to this day. Hip checks me. We have fun with that. She hip checks me out of the way. She says she's a medical professional. She continues CPR. Well, and then when she came in is when the AED said analyzing heart rhythm for, I think, the second time. I get the razor. I'm trying to shave his rug, and I'm cutting up her knuckles, because she's right in the middle where I'm shaving, and the pad's there, and the whole, we're doing our best. In retrospect, there's a couple things I would have done differently, but I do not blame anything, because it wasn't as effective as I could have done. Is get another set of pads, put it on there, tear it off.
Yep.
Boom.
Give them waxing. Yep.
someone told me that afterwards, and I'm like, oh shoot, I should didn't even, didn't even think about that. But I did the best I could, and I did break his ribs. I could feel it and hear it. I can hear it popping, so I knew I was doing it the right way. And actually, the post, the initial medical report showed that the ribs were broken, and that was a sign of good CPR. So I was like, okay, I know I did that right, and I was going deep, and there's video of it, and I could, the recoil is yes, you need to push down, but obviously when you lift up, the chest needs to come out to do the sucking, the other side of the pumping of the blood, and I could feel that. It was surreal. I'll never forget that feeling. So anyway, he lived.
That's great.
Yeah, he lived. He does have some issues. He wants to stay private, so I'm not going to go any more than that. But he has 2 young kids, and he's going to be a dad, and he can be a husband, and that's the most important thing.
Life is very precious, and that is like one of the things that it's really difficult to teach in the CPR class, because you have kind of like a faceless mannequin that doesn't have arms, that doesn't have legs, that doesn't have a family, and it's almost a joke. Like, you're just going through the motions. And I see this with the students. And so when you transfer that to the real life, like, there are a lot of things that you had mentioned. We always talk about the things you see. And like, I've seen a lot of stuff on the ambulance, and I'm really proud to say that I've saved people's lives in that way. But I always get asked, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? And a lot of people don't realize it's not just the things that you see, it's the things that you hear, it's the things that you feel, things that you smell. All of those things play into it. And what I really appreciate about your story is you were talking about something that we call QIQA, quality insurance and quality, or I'm sorry, quality inspection, quality assurance. And that's kind of like looking back at what you did and not just beating yourself up and saying, I should have done this, I should have done that, but using it as a learning opportunity. And then also saying, but I know I did these things well. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to do things to the best of our ability, because when somebody's life is on the line, some stuff kind of goes scatterbrain. You kind of lose sight and you get tunnel vision. And that's why we train so much. I always tell the kids that amateurs train until they get it right, and professionals train until they get it wrong. And I want everybody to be a professional. I want you to train until you get it wrong, because then that's going to be your weakest link, and that's where you need to focus. I also love that you had mentioned making sure that we do the full recoil. We talk about compressions only CPR now. We kind of moved away, especially since COVID, to doing mouth to mouth or breathing for a patient. What a lot of people don't realize is when you allow that full recoil on the chest, one, that is when the heart is refilling with blood. So when you push down, the heart has blood to pump out. If you never allow that recoil, the heart can't fill with blood to push out. But also, what a lot of people don't know is when you release off of the chest, you create negative pressure in the chest cavity, and it actually sucks some air into the mouth. So just because you're not breathing for the patient doesn't mean they aren't getting air. They're only getting about 20 to 25% of what a normal breath, like a shallow breath, would be. It is not enough to sustain life, but it's not nothing. And that's really important as well. So those were kind of some of the things that I was thinking about as you were giving your anecdote. And it's phenomenal that he lived. Again, that
Yeah.
10% club, because of rapid CPR, rapid defibrillation, and bystander involvement.
Yeah, there's a group of us, and I was just part of that chain. They're the guys the guy who ran into the locker room to come get me. He did something.
Yep.
Everyone had a role in this, and there's that chain. And I go back to that chain. The basic chain of survival is, of course, someone falls, collapses, cardiac arrest. You call 911. Number 2, start CPR. Number 3, get the AED. But there's a gap in there. There's a gap in, okay, where the hell is the AED? How do you find where the AED is? That is the gap that we are filling. And it is a chasm, a mile deep, where, trying to locate where that AED is. So,
Yep.
and you're talking about, so real life. And that's one thing that after I took my first CPR class, after my wife had her sudden cardiac arrest, and you'll meet her in October, I was not there for Julie's cardiac arrest. I was at my office. So I didn't experience it firsthand. We take our class, and you have the row of mannequins, and you make sure you hear the click. the little click, and when you're doing the compressions, because you got to go deep enough.
Yep.
And here's how to place the things. And then after that, I use the word antiseptic maybe as a word. It was clean. It was perfect. It was not messy. Then I go to YouTube and I see a video of a real police cam video of a sudden cardiac arrest. It is
Yep.
messy.
Yep.
It is not clean and antiseptic. And so I was like, you know what? I'm I I like to push the envelope a little bit, cross the line, just not barrel through the wall, but cross the line just a little bit, just to make a difference. And what I did is I created a video, and and I understand a lot of people that teach CPR use this video as the introduction to their training class, because they'll, hey class, welcome, we're going to learn CPR and AED training. Watch this video. And it's the video I edited together to the song "Staying Alive," of course,
Right.
of my thing, because I'm a very positive. I look at the positive angles of things. So, we all know that sudden cardiac arrest national average is 10%, which means 90% of the people who have a sudden cardiac arrest die.
Yeah.
So I took that, flipped it over, and said, okay, fact. Now what about the 10%? What happened to make those 10% live? So
Hmm.
I took all of this surveillance video, police video, um, uh, security cameras, and did a little compilation of, okay, here's someone exercising at a gym. Here's someone just walking down the hallway at an airport terminal, and fall, and most all of them do the face smack, because when you have a cardiac arrest, you just fall. It's not just your heart's having a problem. Your nose is now broken. You're bleeding all over the place. Again, it ain't pretty. So, and I say, so you have people fall, and then you have call 911. People come to their location, and it says step one, call 911, and you hear, hey, call 911, call the paramedics, call, and you hear that in these videos. Then you say, then number two, start CPR. Then you've got people starting CPR on a real body, on a real human, and you can see that it happening. And then the big one is the shock. You got the AED, and someone goes and says, "Get the AED. You got a defibrillator. Go get it." And someone goes and gets it, and they arrive, and you can see them put the pads on, and you see the patient there, and okay, shock advised. You don't see that in the mannequin. And
Nope.
so you see that in real life. And that happened twice with Julie. 2 times
Yeah.
she got shocked. So it's used a lot in CPR training this is real life. Don't be afraid, because I know some people are afraid. The paramedic that was at Julie's first on the scene said he cannot tell you how many times they arrived to a location and there's a lifeless body and there's 10 people standing around looking. It's like,
Yep.
do something, you know? And so that's what we're all about.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay, so tell me the importance of spreading the word of what we're doing. And I know we've kind of gone over that, but I want to kind of encapsulate what we've done and what we're talking about and what we're doing, and the importance of what we're doing, and how this will save lives.
Yeah. I think my motivation for doing this really comes down to, so I have two small kids. My daughter's 2.5, and my son is about to turn 8 months old. I've been married to my wife for just about 10 years. I take being a father and being a husband very seriously. I try to do everything that I do for them to make them proud. And the scariest thought is that I could die, or that my wife could die. And so when I'm doing this, I'm not just doing this to help other people. I'm almost putting myself on the ground in my head. I'm saying, what if I die? And the only thing that could potentially keep me alive to go back to see my kids, to see my wife, is the hope that somebody by me has the Pulse Point app and did this and is able to find a defibrillator, and that's what saves my life. So as again, I like to be dramatic, I like to be cliched, but that's where I think about. And my life is no more. So if I feel that way, I think other people would feel that way as well. So it's not just about other people, it's about me. And it's not just about me, it's about other people. So I think that that kind of answers your question, but that's where my motivation comes from. And when I'm going around, and even though I'm tired and I'm working 60 or 70 hours a week, I'm still like, all right, if I can just find one today, that's a win. Because if you find one today and one tomorrow and one the next day, and everybody does that, that is a huge impact that you have. It does not need to be one person finding 50. It can be 50 people finding one.
Yep, totally. To this day, and I'll tell you, I have mapped. It's in the thousands of AEDs. Now, many of those are on a list that I was able to get, like you were talking about, from a school or system or a municipality. But when I'm at a location and I see an AED, I mean, Julie already knows that I wherever we're going, just give me 30 seconds. I got to take care of this situation. And I get my phone, I open up the app, I see if it's there or not. If it's not, I'll need about 30, 45 seconds. That's all it takes to do. That's all it takes. It's a no-brainer. It's so quick and easy. And that could save someone's life. But there is a little, even though I've done countless AED mappings, there is a sense of satisfaction when I hit submit.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to that a little bit, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, so I just registered to become a identifier and verifier last week, and I've so far done 15. And I think overall, if I was to count the actual time that I was doing it, like you had said, each one takes less than a minute. It's probably been about 20 minutes total, but there have been times that I go out and I'm specifically looking for them. But you're right. You feel this satisfaction because in my head, I'm saying I might have just been the difference between someone getting the help that they need versus them not knowing that there was an AED in this building. I just can't emphasize it enough. We know what type of buildings almost always have them. And when I look at the map, specifically of my little tri-town in the North Shore of Boston, it is virtually vacant. It is untapped. And this is changing very rapidly. Every day I log on and there's more and more. And I'm like,
I do,
more.
I do the same thing with my area.
And I told my students, I said, do not wait on this because this is an assignment in community service for you. I want you to get this many. It is going to get harder as more people map them because people are going to go for those easy hits. And then we need to think outside the box. But I had students tell me as well. They're like, yeah, I tagged them. It took literally 30 seconds. I didn't realize how easy it was. So overall, easy, user-friendly. It makes a difference. You feel good. And there's no greater satisfaction than knowing that you helped somebody in an emergency. I'm a firm believer of that.
Awesome. Okay. You and I could talk forever, but you just encapsulated everything perfectly just with that last statement. So anything else you want to say?
I hope that everybody takes up the challenge to be a cardiac crusader. No effort is too small because like we had said, all it takes is one person to make the impact to save a life. So please take the time, take that 30 seconds, and then go tag those AEDs. Let's save some lives.
Couldn't have said it any better. Nick, thank you so much for the time. And I look forward to seeing you in person when we have our official launch for Massachusetts. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Greg.